Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike,
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How's it going today, Mike?
hey, I'm good. I know we had a beautiful day, and you and I both got out for golf in our respective states here. Too bad we couldn't golf together the other week. You know, you got what, your 18th round of COVID?
Yeah, so I haven't talked to Mike in 2 weeks. Well, we've been
Yeah,
texting, obviously, but
yeah.
I haven't potted with you in 2 weeks because, yeah, sadly, last week got hit with the COVID again. And it was weird because the first two times, the first time was really bad. And the other two times, not so bad. And this one was just, I don't know, maybe it was mixed in with some strep because my kids have also had strep lately. Like it's just, you know, I like this crazy weather. First it's 30 and then it's 80 today. Like, it doesn't help. But I'm feeling better. I got out of the house, got golfing today. So here we are.
Unfortunately, though, the bigger thing that COVID kept you from is talking with Tyler Boer about Red Sky
Yes.
Mourning.
Yes. So, I'm here introing this episode. And so I understand that you had an amazing, like 15-minute long chat about a couple paragraphs on Jack Carr's website.
Yeah, we went in depth. These few paragraphs we've got to tease us for Red Sky Mourning. It has a lot packed in there. So he and I went deep. There was also like a 30-second trailer posted on social media, a little teaser trailer, and we tried to go frame by frame on that. It's most likely all pure nonsense and speculation. We got a couple of good theories out there, though.
Okay.
So let's use this time, though, Chris. I haven't heard from you at all what you think about both the title and the little plot description that we got.
So the title is interesting because, is he going, because, he likes Montana, like that area. So that's big sky country. You have the red sky. And like there's a saying, it like, you know, red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky in the morning, sailor's warning. Like that's like a thing. Like, so that was the first thing that I went to when I read Red Sky Mourning. Like, all right, it's bad omen, but then also like this idea of mourning, like is there going to be some trauma going on? Red blood, all these things were jumping to my mind. And then I read the paragraph on Jack's website, explaining, like giving us the nitty gritty, and it's exactly what we've been waiting for, dude. We were talking about Alice. I think like that was like our biggest letdown,
Yep.
even though like I really liked the last novel, but I wanted more Alice. And then Jack is giving it to us. Like she's going to be the main character, like pretty much with James, like this next novel. I'm super intrigued, super excited about this.
That's what Tyler and I mainly talked about for this whole time was those exact questions we raised on the pod. And I went back and listened to our coverage of Only the Dead. We had so much to say. We did 3 hours on it. We had a 3-part series on Only the Dead and ended up ranking it really high.
Mm-hmm.
The
It was a
more
good novel.
Yeah, the more I think most of us, I think you or he put it second favorite, and we all had it third favorite, second or third favorite. It's definitely one of the better James Reece books. I even might bump it up. I had True Believer ahead of it. The more I go back to this book, and I just listened to a few chapters at the end, I wanted to kind of refresh after talking to Tyler where we left off at Only the Dead. So I totally recommend you guys check out our coverage on that. We really go over the main points of what happened. And some of them are going to be important here. Alice, of course, is one of them. But Tyler brought it up, and I had to go back to the last chapter to see it again. The president has Reece in her office, and she's the vice president after the assassination attempt orchestrated by the Russians. But I don't know about her. Do you remember?
She gets that phone call.
She had the phone call. She had a Cryptol device. She told Reece the recording device software and bugs in the Oval Office was turned off for their meeting. And she takes this phone call once he leaves, and it's super fishy. It's really suspicious. So I don't know what to think about this President Olsen, and it's not mentioned in the description here. There's a new politician controlled by a foreign power, a breath away from the Oval Office. I mean, she's already in the Oval Office, so what's that transition of power like? And in the background, we've got the collective. One other thing I saw in Only the Dead that I kind of forgot was that he mailed, or at least he told Poe that he mailed the documentation that Poe wanted to cover up about the collective and everything they've been doing and these global elites. And he did say he put that information out there, and Poe says, yeah, but you can't stop it. It's essentially like Hydra. And while Poe's disappointed that the documents are out there, he thought he destroyed them. He does tell Reece, you only know very little of this organization. And if you think doing that is going to stop it, you're woefully misunderstood. So are any of those loose ends, President Olsen, the collective, and certainly we know Alice, going to play a role in this? We don't know from this description. It sounds like it's going to do something completely new.
I know. And then there's this Chinese submarine. Like that's going to like bring us into the story. And then I think it's going to evolve from there. So yeah, super excited about this. What do we know when this is coming out? May 14th.
May. Okay. Spring
book. Yeah, his books come out in May, and then we get Brad, and then we get
Kyle.
So spread out.
It's a nice way to spread it out.
Yeah. Kick off the summer with Jack, and the summer with now with Don.
Don, yeah, exactly. So before I get into my conversation with Tyler, we play that for you, Chris. Any last minute things you have to say about, besides Alice, what you expect or what you want in the next Reece book?
I want to go a little bit more into his relationship with Katie. Like I felt like that kind of took a little bit of a back seat in the last novel. I want to see more of the Hastings. Like gotta see more Papa Hastings, Mama Hastings.
Caroline, baby. Caroline Hastings.
Yeah, and I'm just really intrigued to see like how he interacts with Alice, and like ultimately, is Alice good? Is she bad? Like, or some sort of in between. Like, how does he play with that? Because this idea of this superpowered AI, and the way I was reading it, I think it's also going to be combating like another AI. So it's going to be like a battle of AIs.
Yo, that's what we talk about.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to listening to your conversation with Tyler. So.
Yeah, and you bring up the Hastings. One other little nugget that we were left dangling is Rafe wants to hire the German,
right?
Who is kind of like that Grisha Asarov.
Yeah,
is that going to play a role? And mourning spelled with the U in the sense of loss. Do we lose somebody? I mean, that to me was the first thing when I heard Red Sky Mourning, particularly how it was spelled. Red Sky signifying death and blood. Mourning. I was like, shit, are we going to lose somebody big?
Yeah.
Is it Rafe?
Ooh, that'd be tough, man. That'd be tough.
That'd be tough.
Is it Katie?
Is it Reece?
No. No.
Is it Katie? Oh,
we have
really
to
do that again.
We have. Yeah, no, he can't. He already killed his wife once. But we gotta plan like our Jack Carr, because they just started up the filming again with the prequel series with Ben. Chris Pratt's going to be in that show.
Yeah, for I think 2 of the episodes.
So excited about that.
That one's dropping first before season 2 of Terminalist.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then it said we're going to get cover of this updated soon. So we're going to have to get back on to talk about the cover. So
definitely another conversation with the boys is gonna happen when that cover drops. I don't know. I'm a little antsy about that, but we'll see.
All right, cool.
We ended up liking Only the Dead a lot, the cover.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, enjoy this conversation between Tyler and Mike.
We're joined again by Jack Carr superfan and now jiu-jitsu master Tyler Boer. Welcome back to the pod.
What's going on? I wouldn't be saying that too much. I do not have that much jiu-jitsu under my belt compared to everyone else.
You've been committed to it, though.
I'm committed, but that doesn't mean I'm good.
What are the actual titles? Is master even a thing?
No, it is not a thing.
I wouldn't have.
No, it goes off of belt color and a typical training schedule, and then how often it takes to change belt colors, and those colors represent skill level and knowledge base of the sport. And I am simply a novice and not very good. So
next time we hear from you, you'll be a grandmaster.
No, not unless you plan on hearing from me next in like 10 years. So it's a very long and strenuous, it's a very long process. So a lot of people go into it with not realistic expectations. So as long as you realize it's going to be like a 10 to 15 year grind, to get decent, then maybe you can stick around. But I'm just getting started, really enjoying it so far. So,
well, you know who else has been getting to the grind? That's our man, Jack Carr. And the whole reason we brought you back here today is we've got some exciting news about the next installment. And I'll be honest, you broke the news to me. My phone started lighting up the other day. We're recording 2 days after the drop of Red Sky Mourning. And we wanted to do it right here, get your live reaction, hear what you think. I just dug into a lot of this. Finally, I read the little breakdown and watched the video. And I know you're the master at going through those things frame by frame. So start us off from the beginning. What was your state of mind when you first saw Red Sky Mourning?
I saw that it was like two days prior to the drop that he was he just made a post that like said title dropping soon, which usually whenever he does that, he has it coming like within the week. So, a couple days later, he released the title with a short little clip video with a little bit of audio, and the video that he put with it in the background behind some filters and stuff were some clips from the Terminal List show.
Yeah.
So saw some Chris Pratt and stuff in there. So nothing too revealing other than the title. And mourning is spelled like mourn, like you mourn a loss. It's not mourning like the beginning of the day, which I thought was nice. It's a cool title. I'm very curious to see what the cover looks like. I know we always critique and go over our favorite covers out of like the bunch that get released across the world. So
it'll come.
Yeah, but I'm very curious. I've been pretty impressed with his last 2 books after like the kind of the fumble with the 4th one. So I like the title, and something I caught at the end when I was going frame by frame a little bit was maybe just a short synopsis. But the problem is it's cut off on the left and right, so you don't even get full sentences. But most of what is in here, like the first line is what he has in his posts, which is, "You think you know James Reece, think again, a storm is on the horizon." America's days are numbered is in there, I think is another one.
Yeah.
But something I caught whenever the words were just on screen for just a frame or two is that a Marine has gone rogue and is navigating towards you can't see what it says. And then on the next line, it says the United States putting its nuclear missiles within striking, I'm guessing distance, or something like that.
Well, let me fill it in, because actually all of those are ripped, like you said, directly from the preview we got and the synopsis.
Yeah.
So I thought we can go kind of section by section here, and let me get your take on some of this. So like you said, you think you know James Reece, think again. What is that about? What is the twist you think we're going to get? Something that's revealed about James?
I don't know what's going to be revealed about James. I think it has to do with what the discussion he has with the president at the end of the last novel, because we get told that there's a discussion happening, and we don't get to really see or know what is said.
Yeah.
Other than that, it seems like he leaves with a different perspective than he had going in. Going in there, he pretty much thought that his fighting days were done, and he wanted to settle down in Montana with his wife and have his store and his business that his idea was. And then, Alice kind of threw a monkey wrench into that.
Yeah.
So, I think this book is going to be really focused on Alice and whether she can be trusted or not.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think, I know Alice is no longer confined to that location. I believe, was it in Texas, the underground location he went to?
Texas, or was it Colorado? I might be mixing that up with Scott Harvath.
I thought it was Texas. He went to Texas.
But she escaped. She's like living in the internet, apparently.
Yeah. So she is basically like almost the same as like a cloud, but she's, self-aware and sentient. And for some reason, she has a thing for James. She likes James, and she makes herself sound like Lauren to James, which I'm very curious. We see everything from James's perspective. I'm curious what other characters she might have a liking to, and if she makes herself sound different to them, or is James such a staple to her for some reason that she sounds like Lauren to everybody. Like she changed her personality to be more comfortable to James, and that's just how she is. But I think it's going to focus on her and whether she can be trusted or not. And I also think that she's going to be in some sort of danger, which, from past descriptions and just knowledge about quantum computing, is pretty much impossible for her to be in trouble if she's self-aware and like not in a physical location anymore. But I think instead of her being in direct danger, I think maybe some bad guys. I feel like that underground facility might come under attack. Like if we're going to speculate about what might happen, I feel like we might get into a little bit of. Have you ever seen War Games with Matthew Broderick?
No.
I think it might be a little bit like that. So War Games is about a very large computer that is meant to simulate nuclear war with Russia during the Cold War. And basically, Matthew Broderick unknowingly is playing what he believes is a video game at home, but at a nuclear defense location nearby. Matthew Broderick is making these artificial strikes, and the nuclear facility is getting like notifications that nukes are in the air, basically. So this computer's like playing like a game with them, basically. So, anyways, for those of you who know War Games, great 80s movie. I think there's going to be a little bit of that going in there where Alice might be tricking our enemies into maybe launching a counter offense for some reason, for some unknown goal. But I think, in my mind, she's going to be in trouble or in danger somehow. I think this one's going to focus on Alice again. What was that, book 5 had Alice, I think, as a big part
in the
of
blood?
it.
Is that when we met Alice in the blood?
Yeah, I believe so, because that's when he was hunting down that counter sniper. That was the sniper versus sniper.
Yes,
book.
And then she featured in Only the Dead, but I remember I was a little wanting. I think I wanted her. She
was barely in the end.
Yeah, she took a back seat
of Only the Dead.
Yeah, and she got Reece the cell phone that tipped him off to the coming arrest, and then she also
but that was at the end
of.
That was at the end of In the Blood. She helps him get out, but then he says, "So where's Alice?" And they basically don't know.
They don't know exactly.
She's missing. So she's in the wind for the majority of that last book.
Yeah, and thinking about that as like an arc, I'm kind of happy about that now, because in the moment I was kind of disappointed she wasn't there, but I think what that allowed was the last book, Only the Dead, to be a Tom Reece story.
Yeah, which I loved, and I hope that it. You know what? I really think so he's working on some nonfiction stuff. And I think this fiction story, I don't think we're going to get like an end of James Reece, but I think we are going to get maybe a spinoff of either Rafe or of Thomas Reece. I think a Thomas Reece spinoff of like Cold War spy stuff, espionage,
would be great.
CIA stuff would be great. Because that prologue that focuses on Thomas Reece is awesome. It's so good.
The whole Poe and Stowe storyline, I remember coining it as that. Anytime we went back to Poe and Stowe and these connections that Thomas had and this world he was building, and finally getting James to interact with those figures who were from his childhood, but really mainstays of Thomas Reece's life, I thought that was so exciting and a great move at this point in the series. I thought doing that in Only the Dead was just perfect.
Yeah. Just that prologue and the espionage type stuff, and the sneaking around and not knowing his full name, and then I really liked the wife being introduced to him and them having like a cool relationship, and then he saves her is great. And I don't know, that for some reason that section of that book it has to do with the time period, obviously, and spy stuff, but it just has like a very Cold War espionage, Tinker Tailor Soldier spy feel to it, and like the spy that came in from the cold feel, stuff like that,
for sure.
So I really enjoy that beginning part. So it would be cool to get a Thomas Reece spinoff with some spy espionage stuff.
I agree with that, but it also, as good as it was in the moment, it did, I remember, leave me wanting for what's the deal with Alice, because she was such. Once you enter her into the universe, you almost, it's Pandora's box. You can't put it away. You can't close it. Like the fact that that's out there is going to change everything.
And I liked how they didn't use her. They just said, "Oh, she's in the wind."
Right.
Like she ran basically from her physical embodiment of being in that suspended computer.
But based on what we're hearing now, she was still she was still active. There was something happening.
Yeah, she was still doing stuff and probably pretty active. I mean, she got James released from his imprisonment, which I still believe should have had a little bit more weight to it. Like it was like, the end the last book on a huge cliffhanger of he's arrested for the president's murder. And then in the next book, like, he has a hard time in there, but he's just like willfully released and like, oh, sorry, wrong guy.
I remember you made that point, and it's definitely valid. But so to wrap up the Alice point, because I really like that we're coming back to it at this point, and I'm glad it kind of had a breather. Here's what the little description says about Alice's role in this book. Quote, "The country's only hope is a quantum computer that has gone dark, retreating to the deepest levels of the internet, learning at a rate inconceivable at her inception. But during her time in hiding, she has done more than learn. She has become a weapon. She is now positioned to act as either the country's greatest savior or its worst enemy. She is known as Alice, and her only connection to the outside world is to a former Navy SEAL sniper named James Reece, who has left the violence of his past life behind." those are the questions when Alice was introduced, the exact questions I wanted asked by a novelist, by a thriller novelist, and someone as well in tune with things as Jack Carr. Will she be the country's greatest savior or worst enemy? That initially was one of the things Chris and I debated when we met Alice. Is she the best thing to happen for the U.S. or is she the worst thing to happen for the U.S.?
Yeah.
And then you explore that through the relationship with Reece, which allows you to get at a very necessary fiction storytelling AI quantum computing development, which is how human is this thing? And you do that through a relationship with a person. And it sounds like something about what Alice learned or advanced to necessitates a human relationship for it to achieve its goals. We don't know if that's good or bad, but the fact that it requires a connection to a human being that Alice probably knows more than he knows about himself is just, I think, great questions to play with.
Yeah, I think that there's a big potential for James to be used here and a big potential for a nice twist.
Yeah.
But I think that there could be like a double, a twist and a take back. That's whenever Alice is using James, but then, there's a point to letting him know that he's being used. And meanwhile, she wasn't actually using him. She just told him that to influence him to do this task or that task. So, I think I really like, and I think the readers seem to really like James and Alice's relationship and how she, tries to embody Lauren a little bit, or at least remind him of her. And she clearly does that on purpose.
You know what would be cool? The same way a recent trend has been the voices, particularly of Thomas Reece, but I believe occasionally he also sees or hears his family.
Yeah.
I feel like Alice knowing or manipulating that, like, because that's consciousness, right? Like, if Alice can know everything that exists through the internet, through, physical, auditory, whatever senses, Alice can interpret that data. That data can be digitized. As of now, I don't think human consciousness can, right? Like, James is the only one who hears those voices.
Yeah.
Well, is there some way that Alice needs to be able to hear or be able to provide him the voices of his father or the voices of, Lucy? And does that have something to do with Alice? Because the fact that Jack has done that for a few books now and those voices have helped him survive a few battles is really cool. You can make that the next level if Alice is able to somehow influence that or make a play on, or that's the one thing she doesn't know. It could be the opposite, right? The one thing that saves everybody is the fact that she doesn't know. She thinks she's calculated James Reece, right? Like, you can download every data on a human being and you basically could think, since you're AI, you can control them like you could be controlled, an automaton. But the voices in his head are what allow him not to be manipulated, because that's the one thing Alice can't know. That would be really cool.
It's either that or something similar. Like, Alice has everybody down but Lucy because she was 3 at the time of her
data.
Death. And what if she's manipulating James by impersonating everyone from his past, and then it goes to impersonate Lucy,
and he knows it's false.
Get him to do the last thing. Yeah, and he goes, "Well, that's not her," and it snaps him out of it. Would be cool.
Dude, there's so much you could do.
Have you ever seen Eagle Eye?
The answer is no. I think every movie you ask me, particularly ones from the 80s, is going to be a no.
No, Eagle Eye's newer. That's a Shia LaBeouf movie.
Oh, okay.
But I'll have if anybody that wants some AI films out there, you can do War Games, which is from the 80s.
Did you see that new one? What's the one that just came out?
There's a new AI one called The Creator.
Yeah, I heard it's only okay.
It's good. It's all right. It wasn't bad.
Okay,
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It's a story that's been done. It's a little similar to like the Last of Us type of story.
Okay.
So 2 people are kind of forced to travel together and don't like each other at first, and then eventually grow fond of each other. War Games is great, and that I think that this is going to have kind of a feel of that, just because Jack loves the 80s and 80s movies. And that's a very that's like technology making 2 countries nearly go to war inadvertently, and they really aren't doing what the technology says that they're doing. It's basically like false flagging.
Yeah.
And then Ex Machina is a great AI movie that's pretty good. And then Eagle Eye is cool too. Eagle Eye has some cool things. I believe Eagle Eye even features a quantum computer with a lens and like a camera that it can see through. And like one of my favorite scenes, this does not ruin anything, no spoiler alert or anything, but 2 people are talking in a room to be private and away from any microphones so that the quantum computer can't tell what they're saying. and the lens looks at the glass and it can see the minute vibrations,
Oh, of
and
course.
it can decrypt what they're saying by
Yeah.
the vibrations in the glass. It's super cool. So those three, if you guys want some AI movies that might relate or prepare you for this type of story, which I know some people may have thought the last Alice themed book, which, like we said, I think was 5, right?
Yep.
In the Blood, might have been a little more on the science fiction side, but it's actually pretty grounded as far as what the capabilities are, or the potential capabilities.
And I believe that when Jack talked about that, you know, he didn't say, I know this is true, but he says, I've talked to enough people who have been on the inside to tell me that I'm pretty close to something. So
he would ask questions and they say, well, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it sounds like war games in some of these, and thank you for those recommendations.
Yeah.
Get into that. Let's turn to a little bit of the geopolitical stuff, because we get some really, really explosive information here, particularly this part about a foreign power controlling an agent being one breath away from the Oval Office. Just listen to this. A Chinese submarine has gone rogue and is navigating toward the continental U.S., putting its nuclear missiles within striking distance of the West Coast. A rising Silicon Valley tech mogul with unknown allegiances is at the forefront of a revolution in quantum computing and AI. A politician controlled by a foreign power is a breath away from the Oval Office. This is election stuff. This is technology. It's nuclear missiles on the USA's, doorstep. That's China. And in the little video teaser, there was a Chinese flag waving in one of the shots. And now we know this rogue nuclear submarine is within striking distance of the West Coast. Are you digging this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I am. I'm digging it. And if we look back, there's quite a few stories that Jack was writing like a year before, and a book releases, and that theme of that book actually happens in real life. So for instance, True Believer, Ukraine. And then he was already researching biochemical weapons, and then COVID happened. And so I was curious as to what this one would entail, and if anything with like Israel Palestine would be involved, or anything like that. And with election season coming up, I had suspected maybe some election stuff. And especially with the setup, if you read the epilogue of the last book, this vice president that is now in the Oval Office that doesn't want to be there in the presidential position, she basically seemed like she was getting out, and that she gives James the cell phone with Alice on it and everything, and that's kind of, I think, maybe her parting gift from the Oval Office. So unless she can be convinced to run, and even if she runs, there's no guarantee she can win, especially with a tech mogul in the other seat.
Yeah, we got an Elon Musk
almost
kind of
there's almost
figure.
Like untold potential for anybody to basically go in there and even have the greatest support and still lose because a tech mogul is running.
Do you think all three of these storylines have the same aim, in that the Chinese submarine is the foreign power, the Chinese controlling the politician who's about to take, or it seems is going to take, the Oval Office, and the tech mogul with their quantum computing revolutions is in bed with the Chinese? Do you think they're all related, or do you think there's a possibility of another storyline? North Korea is going to infiltrate the Oval Office, or the Russians are the ones working with the tech mogul?
Yeah, I think that it's very good potential that's it. And I have a feeling that the tech mogul being controlled by the Chinese is obviously under the table. And it's being posed as a question, but if you just read that's all the information we're given. Those three things link together very well to set up our antagonists.
Yeah.
And our protagonist is Alice, and her embodiment and the body she's using to get around and get people is James. So, but yeah, I hope it's a question of whether she can be trusted or not, because she disappeared. We don't know where she was. They had to vet her information that released James. That's why it took so long. Right. She gave the FBI and CIA and the government the information to release James, but I think that it took so long. They even tell him because they had to vet all the information.
Well,
they were given.
She would know they're going to vet
trust it. Yeah, and they didn't trust it. Yeah. So she's trying to build trust. It would be nice if she kept it straightforward, but I do think that if you're really gonna change up this thriller book, it can't just be like a group of antagonists versus James and Alice, and there's violence and he's hunting people down. There's got to be a little bit more complexity to it than that. Yeah. So I feel like if Alice, whose side Alice is really on, is going to probably be in question at some point, which I hope it is.
Yeah.
And I hope it's she is on James's side legitimately, but I feel like it's going to be in question because she doesn't have to answer to anybody. There's been times in the past where he needs her and she kind of disappears on him.
Yeah. And we frankly don't know, while she's been in hiding, collecting whatever information she's been doing, will that lead to the conclusion of defending America is the best thing, or is the proper outcome that Alice is aiming for? Or is that not? Like, and the thing is, like, back in the day, I would have said, well, all of that is just an algorithm that depends on the inputs of the programmer, right? The programmer will decide what the end goal is, and you make the algorithm do whatever's necessary to get there. But the thing with AI and quantum computing is that's not the case. You can make an Alice, and there's no requirements for whoever created it and input whatever you wanted it to do, that it's going to continue to do that. As it learns, that's precisely the point. You can't control it. It's going to do what it decides is the next step.
Yeah. So being that it's a tech mogul with the backing of China.
Is there another Alice? Do they have one?
That's what I'm thinking, is that they're trying to develop one, and Alice is either in threat digitally.
Alice inserted itself into that.
Yeah, but I'm thinking maybe there's another quantum computer like Alice, and that it was trying to hack her, and that's why she split from the underground facility. Like, they're going to explain why she left, and that she went deeper into the levels of the internet that she explained in book 5.
Yo, if we get AI v AI, kind of like a spy versus spy book, but this time it's our AI versus their AI, and they're doing defensive and offensive maneuvers. And
I have a feeling if that's the thing, Alice is going to be guiding James through this novel, but if it comes down to that in the final chapter or final chapters, AI versus AI, I think James is going to give her
the edge,
methods, and the edge
to
win, because I think that other AI isn't going to have a James Reece. I think she's going to be guiding James to get to the political leaders of China who has this politician in their pocket, and try and unravel the conspiracy basically, and find out where this sub is exactly. And another thing they could add to it is if the sub is some sort of technology we haven't seen before, or the sub, like War Games, this would be very War Games, is if the sub isn't really there. We are being tricked. We are being tricked by an AI.
Right.
If the sub is there and we go to fire, and meanwhile we hit some boat,
fishing boat,
Chinese, and then China declares war.
That's the book. 20. Let me see. General Stravitas, 2024. There's a really, really good book. I think you like it. We talked about it with Brad Thor. 2054.
It could be very. What was it? The Maine that miraculously exploded and started the Spanish-American War.
Right, the modern day version of that, or even the futuristic version of that. Exactly. No, there was a great book that essentially was the U.S. and China on a collision course, mainly over this fishing boat in the South China Sea that was rigged, made it look like we attacked it, and all hell broke loose. And that was cool because that brought in India, and it made India kind of have to be this neutral, kind of forceful power, saying, like, if there's a Chinese or an American ship that's going to, or plane that's going to basically drop a nuke or launch an attack, India will intercept it. And they had to show their cards and just say, like, you two stop fucking around, and we're going to force you to come to the table. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But back to this AI versus AI, I think you're onto something, and that goes to what we said before with Alice's commitment to Reece. I think she realizes they're probably equally matched, right? What she can do versus what their AI tech can do. And she, I think, somehow calculates the human capacity for relationship is the difference, where the other side doesn't allow for that. Their AI will just, do traditional things to win, or create bots, or create an army, or
it's going to be ones and zeros. And while that human relationship is going to give Alice the edge, but I hope this isn't it, but like I can picture them somehow on their level of artificial intelligence and internet having a physical manifestation digitally and almost fighting, and James can give her the edge on how to fight or something like that, because he knows how to.
Can you imagine an Alice like mech? Like, that'd be nuts.
I don't mean like that. I mean, it's going to take place all digitally.
Yeah. Okay.
But just that she isn't, the AIs will be equal, but James can, it'll be the majority of the book will be Alice guiding James. And then James is going to have a moment of guiding Alice to like some sort of victory. But I do see, like, if we go back to war games, it would be very much in line with that story if, Alice is telling the government, hey, the Chinese have a sub over here, and it's
Yeah.
another AI imitating Alice or
Yeah.
something like that. And meanwhile, the sub isn't even there, and we fire
Yeah.
and hit a fishing boat or something, and then Chinese declare war. It's like, yeah, that's very much like reminds me of war games. And I know, listeners, if you've seen the newest Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, AI and submarines and firing and subs not being there is the very big theme in the prologue of that film. So that movie, quick non-spoiler thing, there's an AI that they have loaded on a sub, and it's supposed to make them stealthy and things like that. And for some reason, I believe a virus is uploaded to it, and it projects an enemy sub nearby. And so they fire a torpedo, and the torpedo goes through where the enemy sub should have been, and basically nothing's there. And eventually they think they're fine, and the torpedo makes like a circle and comes back and hits the sub. So they fired the torpedo, and it hits the rear of it, and they basically kill themselves. So that movie's a lot about trying to get down there to get that AI out of the submarine.
Dang, yeah. One of Ward Larson's books that we read had something similar. It was basically a false flag where one ship tricked our ship into attacking it, and it was a whole mess. So another angle here is there's a drone in the little video clip trailer that they posted. One shot early on in it, a little drone goes through the corner. I wonder how drones will feature, and it'd be kind of cool if there are rogue drones that an Alice or an AI kind of co-ops.
Yeah, that would be nice, because I feel like Alice is going to be in James's pocket or phone or something like that, and I really liked how she warned him of the police coming.
Yeah.
And it was like I can't remember, someone's cell phone didn't have signal.
Yep, and it still
went
through.
off.
Yeah,
I like that. And so I feel like if Alice is going to be on James's person, and there's an enemy AI that this tech mogul is basically in charge of, and then he's being ran by the Chinese, it makes sense for James to be in Asia somewhere, and that other AI is going to have to keep tabs on him.
Yeah.
And so if Alice protects his location somehow with her capabilities, then that drone could be under AI control looking for him.
Yeah, that would be just
and
wild.
I'm sure that it'd be nice if that enemy AI had some sort of personality or embodiment, or a name. I'm sure it's going to have some sort of male. It's going to be,
that would
they
be
probably won't do another
interesting.
female. They'll probably pick a male.
Yeah.
Especially because in that area of the world, men are pictured as being super dominant.
That'd be
it's
really
kind of
cool.
unique. So I think that if there is an AI ran by this tech mogul that's trying to get to the White House, I mean, it's a very big implication that the Chinese are basically trying to invade and control the U.S. via our political system.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that going on in real life. If anybody pays attention to what the Chinese purchase as far as farmland and things like that,
Right.
there's quite a bit of real life stuff implicated.
And the spy balloon.
Yeah, not just the spy balloons, but just some other things. Some other, who's purchasing properties and who is sitting on them.
Yeah.
If you track them back, there's quite a bit, especially when it comes to farmland. Just ridiculous amounts of acreage being owned by people that aren't American.
Yeah, exactly. Or Bill Gates, because he's doing that too. But
he is.
You're talking about some locations, like what China's doing. I also am trying to identify a couple of buildings and cityscapes that we see in the little trailer. And I know one for sure. Well, there's the Capitol building, of course, that it goes past. And then there's the Chinese flag with a coastal looking city that I would imagine is Chinese because it's with the flag behind it. But 9 seconds in, there's also Independence Hall. I'm like 99% certain Independence Hall flashes through. I feel like Philly, that would be something cool, whether it's a battle scene that's happening in like a very historic location.
Okay, so I'm looking at it right now and I'm scrubbing it, and I'm at 9 seconds.
You think that's
Capitol
it?
building? Yeah, I think.
It's the one with the clock. You can see the clock in the middle.
Okay, so let me see if my camera will pick it up or not. So there is a clock in this shot above this. So I do believe that is Independence Hall in Philly. Then they go into some terminal list clips from the show.
Exactly, that was cool.
Then I get a U.S. flag and clouds and the sun rising, and then I see the drone you're talking about here at the end. It's like, let me let it play. It's hard to
Yeah,
tell.
the drone is at the end and then it loops through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching it on loop. There's a horse at one point. A real quick view.
I was hoping to see a submarine there somewhere, but I hope that the submarine is a real threat. You know, it's very hunt for Red October. And that would be another cool thing is if the sub is an actual threat. It's not just, you know, some. I
could be a false flag, could be real.
I expect this sub not to be there. Would be cool because that gives me more of, like I said, a War Games feel.
Yeah.
But even if the sub's there and we can't find it, that's a huge.
Well, that's like World War
problem.
II vibes of like subs buzzing the East Coast, you know, like Long Island and things. Like they were finding Nazi subs. What's with this horse though? I don't know if you can get there. I see this at.
I'm watching. I'm going through super slow.
Go ahead and look for it. You see the tail of a horse. It could be a statue. That's a possibility. It's in like a field, and there's a figure on it turned backwards that doesn't look real, almost a dummy or a scarecrow. Like it's a very strange looking reverse figure on horseback.
Oh yeah, I see it.
The background looks like
I think
could
that's
be
a statue.
Prison. Yeah, I think it's going to be a statue.
I think that's a statue.
That would be an interesting one to try to identify where that is.
Hang on one second. I think I know who it is, but I'm going to try and see where it is. No, he's not on it backwards. That's a colonial hat.
Okay, here's something interesting. Where it says "Think Again" with the crossed tomahawks, in the top half is the American flag as what looks like a nuclear explosion goes off with some sort of clouds or an aura. And as that explodes, a ship goes by on the bottom. I can't identify what kind of ship, if it's military, civilian, transport, but the explosion is happening right above this ship going through. So I think some attacks at sea, whether it's on military vessels or...
Hey, look up equestrian statue of George Washington, Morristown, New Jersey. Tell me if that's not it.
Is he backwards?
He's not, but I watched it again. If I scrubbed it and paused it right on it, it's not backwards. He's wearing like a cloak, and he has that colonial hat, so it looks like it's backwards.
Oh, how'd you come up with this one?
I don't know. I thought it was George Washington. I looked up George Washington statue on horse.
I think it's going to depend on how the tail is swaying. Kind of want to be able to see that.
The shot in the trailer is straight from the back, so it is tough. But I was like, that's a colonial hat, and it looks like maybe Washington.
So that could kind of go with our
New Jersey.
That can go with our Independence Hall Philly thing of like we're going after some sort of historical connections.
Yeah. Northeast.
Yeah, exactly. In the colonial area, like a Williamsburg even. In that case, if the figure's not turned backwards, it could be any old equestrian colonial statue.
I'm trying to go back to it on the video real quick just to double check if he's backwards or not, but that's what came to mind immediately, and I think it looks like it.
Yeah, it could. Could just, well, you got to look at the background too, because there's this building that almost looks prison-like, but and it's in a field.
I'm gonna try and get it on my camera.
Maybe even see the pedestal. It's what kind of pedestal it's on.
Yeah. Oh man, I just missed it. Yeah, I think that's a statue, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm getting looking at the tail. It definitely looks like it's carved
different
metal. One. Yeah, and the background is maybe going to be a key. Probably something small. We're picking nits at this point. You might as well be Chris. And by the way, guys, Chris couldn't make it tonight. He got his 4th bout of COVID. I guess I sent it somehow digitally through the microphone to him last week. But
maybe if I can get this in focus.
Maybe. Where's that statue?
Check out that tail.
Yeah, it could be. But something about U.S. history in the colonial period, I think, is going to play a role with what we're looking at. Chris, and I'm going to take a lot of what you said, Ty, to Chris, and tomorrow night he and I are going to dig into some things. So I'll get a read on what he likes about our theorizing, what his ideas are. Can we just close with, because we brushed over it early on, Red Sky Mourning. You mentioned this play on words, mourning spelled with the U.
The big play on like Red Sun Rising, which would be related directly to China.
Yeah, so red obviously brings up communism, China. Yeah. Red sky makes you think of death. Mourning makes you think of death and explosion. What's your take on the title? Were you happy with it? Because it's very different than anything we've got in a Jack Carr book.
Yeah, I like it. I like in the lineup. I think my favorite is probably Only the Dead because of the phrase in the book that those words are in.
Only the dead live to see the end of war. Great quote.
Yeah. Yeah. So as far as Red, I like it. It's fine. And especially with the relation that China is the antagonist group in this one. We've seen a lot of Russia, a lot of Russian antagonists in the book series so far. So, and not just Russian, but people that are related or in employment by Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think there's a character I was going to ask you about, the German that Rafe goes to at the end of the last one. I think that character is going to have a bigger part in this book with Rafe.
I think you're right.
I think that they might be forming like a little fire team, which would be nice.
I don't know. I think you're right that it's going to happen, and I like that scene. That kind of stuff when we have a series that goes this long, I really pine for. I appreciate. It might happen in 2 or 3 books from now, so it could be now. But
he somehow wrote that character to be so likable with so little dialogue and so little backstory, just to throw him in there with a few paragraphs.
And Rafe picked up on that.
Yeah, and I like Rafe's line. I like Rafe's line when he says, "What do you want?" and Rafe says, "I want to hire you."
Yeah, so I think those seeds are planted firmly. I think that'll come. I don't know if this book is going to be it, but I think you're absolutely right. We didn't even talk. What is the role of Rafe in this book? Where does he fit in all this? I don't know.
His role previously is just to pretty much like the command post for home, I think, for where the Hastings are.
Yeah.
And the Hastings are home.
That compass.
To James. Yeah. And, while I think in the last book, he kind of, spread out a little bit and kind of tagged along on his ventures, he also got left behind a little bit. I like to see an adventure where him and James are there together through the whole thing. So,
yeah. I don't know how he's going to be handled here. I'm not sure.
I feel like Rafe is much more of an equal in Savage Son than in the last book.
For sure. Oh yeah, that's a very Hastings forward book.
I really want to see Rafe as an equal. So what would be cool is like trying to think of a good person or group to compare this to. So in Captain America Civil War, Captain America is the leading man, and then like Winter Soldier
Bucky.
And Falcon, and Winter Soldier and Falcon are like the goofballs that are buddies, that are like the second, they're the backup.
Yep.
But like their chemistry is almost brother-like.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if the German and Rafe kind of had that, and they're the backup, and they're a little brother-like and nitpicking and picking on each other and stuff would be cool. But.
And our listeners would know we're Mitch Rapp fans. You can either take Rafe and the German. Rafe is like the Scott Coleman to the Mitch Rapp, and the German could be a Grisha Azarov to the Mitch Rapp. So our listeners will totally get those dynamics, and we know Jack really appreciated Vince Flynn, so. Absolutely. I think there's an opportunity for a little love triangle there, like a Mitch Rapp, a Scott Coleman, and a Grisha. So you're spot on with that. I just got to say about the title, my first reaction was it's a little, I don't know how I'm feeling about this kind of pun. It was almost a little playful. I know it sounds deadly serious, Red Sky Mourning, but it's almost trying to be a little too cute for me. Obviously, I'm going to withhold judgment finally until we read the book, and I think maybe even get the cover. I think the cover, if they go directly into a red sky, might be a good play. It could come off again as cheap or cute, so I'm really, really not too sure. And mourning makes me think death will play a role. So if any of that happens in the book, I think I can digest the title a lot better. But my first reaction was twofold. Is it a little too cute with this pun? And second, doesn't seem like a Jack Carr title. It's really different. And that might be a signpost of what's to come. And I'd be okay with it if that's embraced. But if it's just kind of this out there title that doesn't, think of the first 3. Terminalist, True Believer, Savage Son. Like those were knockout 1, 2, 3. That was a perfect combination. Devil's Hand, In the Blood, Only the Dead. I can find some connective tissue there. They're not as, I would say, they don't flow as well as the first 3. But there's a little connective tissue there. So there's a chance to say Red Sky Mourning is now its own. It's starting something new. It's a new wave for America, new wave for Reece, new type of story we're going to get. So I'm going to withhold final judgment, but I got to be honest about that being my first reaction.
Yeah. I think Jack has said before that he does these book deals 2 at a time since day one, probably signing another one for 2 more. And I'm curious as to if it's going to continue with James Reece, or we're going to take a little break from him. Yeah. I know he's writing the nonfiction series with a partner, and I don't know if each book in that series, I believe, James Reece is once a year. The nonfiction series is once every 2 years. And each of the nonfiction series is about a terrorist attack, from what I recall. And I think the first one's about the Beirut bombings. So I believe he has a second writer with him on that. And I don't know if that writer is going to continue with that series, or that writer is like an expert on the Beirut bombings. And then whatever terrorist attack he chooses to write about next, that he'll get an expert to write with him on that one. So I'm not sure about that. But as far as like the two, this is book 6. Or no, is this 7? This is 7. This is the first one of this deal. So he at least has this outline and the outline of the next one ready to go.
And he does think ahead. He's told us that before, that he really is thinking about the next.
I really loved all the Thomas Reece breadcrumbs throughout the other books.
And it came to a head.
I feel like the last book was such a payoff.
Book 6 was the time to do it. Agreed.
Yeah. So I feel like some other breadcrumbs are going to start being laid now for
the next thing.
Maybe the next big payoff, which will probably be another 6 books in. So we will we'll see. I'm curious.
It hasn't been hinted at yet. Family is a key theme in the James Reece stories. Could there be a baby Reece down the road? Is that in the cards in book 7, in book 8, in book 12, or is it never? I'm just putting that out there too.
I think that's going to happen at some point.
Just how soon? Yeah.
I think it'll add to the family aspect of the books. We got like a decent amount of like romance and stuff in the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see.
Tyler, we've got tons of movie recommendations, book recommendations from you, and tons of valuable insight. Just as a fan, I love going deep into this. We pull things apart, probably way too much, and more likely than not, because this has happened quite often, we're going to look back on this next year after we read the book and realize we were complete bozos.
Yeah. This is a fun speculation episode with you. So
you got to enjoy the process. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about enjoying talking about these books we love, this form of entertainment that is just incredible. And one of my favorite things when we get a new book from a Jack Carr, a Vince Flynn. And so talking about it with you, talking about it with Chris every week is just a highlight. It's not about getting it right. It's about sharing different opinions, perspectives, and ideas. And love doing that again with you. And maybe when we get the title, when we get the cover, maybe we'll bug you for a quick hot take.
Yeah. And another recommendation real quick for new readers of Jack Carr. Ironclad is the company that is the main producer for his podcast, Danger Close. And they produce a small trailer on YouTube for each of the novels that are actually pretty cool and pretty good quality. So if you're diving into the series, check out the trailers before you read the books. They kind of set a tone for what you're about to jump into. So I also expect Ironclad to do another trailer for this book. They did one for the last one. They've done one for each of them. So
that's different than the one dropped on social media with the announcement?
Correct. That one we saw was just the title announcement. The actual trailer for the book should come out like a month before the book releases, and usually it's about 2 minutes typically.
Cool. Well, we'll be talking about that. We'd love to have you back on. It's been a blast. I'm going to take these ideas to Chris, and I'll hit you up, and we'll get to see what he thinks about some of these ideas we talked about.
All right. Sounds good.
Dude, thanks a lot. Appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this special. I don't know. Is this like an emergency pod? Because this is unscheduled. Nice long. Originally it was just like, hey, you want to hop on, talk about it? We're gonna do something else, like package with something. And then he's like, turned out like, oh, let's get Tyler on and we make it longer. And then when I found out you guys went for 50 minutes, it's like I don't even need to do anything more with you. So that's great. Next time you hear from us, we are going to be doing Damascus Station, right, Mike?
Yeah, I think because Moscow X, David McCloskey's second book, comes out mid-late November, the 21st. Well, actually, it's already out in paperback, but that's when the audio version comes out. And we are waiting for that because we do like to comment on the narrators. And I thought Damascus Station had a great audiobook, great narrator. So I think let's do Damascus Station. We'll get ready for Moscow X. We're going to sprinkle in some Andrews and Wilson there because Sons of Valor 3 comes out November 14th. And we're still working on bringing you a conversation with Eric Bishop, more of an indie author, about his novella release of Ransom Daughter. So in whatever order, come November, expect a little bit of David McCloskey, Andrews and Wilson, Eric Bishop, and those are some of the books we got coming down the pike.
Yeah. Oh, and should we tell them about our book club?
True.
Keep it a little secret.
Yeah, no, I think we said it on a pod already. Spy
Okay,
Who Came In From the Cold.
I couldn't remember if we did, but yeah. So we picked Spy Who Came From the Cold.
Good suggestion, Chris.
If all of your listeners want to join in, reread it ahead of time. We're going to be recording that one probably in mid-December. So you got a whole month and a half.
And if you do want to join our book club discussion, because this is going to be a discussion with our patrons, we're going to come to you with an episode, just Chris and I. But beforehand, we're going to have a virtual chat, a hangout with our patrons. And you could be part of that too. So if you do want to join our No Limit Patron Book Club, Spy Who Came In From the Cold is our November read. We'll talk about it on a Zoom chat, all hang out together. You can find us at thrillerpod.com and hit the Patreon tab and join up. And honestly, you are the reason we make more podcasts. So the more patrons we get, the more podcasts and book club meetings that will be had.
Yep. And we also have to thank our patrons, our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. And as always, just let James be James.